I wish you all could see the view from my hotel room today. Actually, hold on. Not all of you at once, because that would be a lot of people in one hotel room. But I wish all of you at some point could experience this view I have right now. I'm in Long Island City, which is just across the East River from Manhattan, and I'm looking out my window, and to the left is the Freedom Tower in the distance. To the right is the Empire State Building, all lit up. Above it all is the moon, and it's beautiful. It's a great night under the moon, like the logo for Coast to Coast Pinball, episode 160. Let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast. It's a commentary. I'm a man out of quarters underneath the crescent moon thing we got going up there with just a little bit of cloud shading around it. It's very nice. Coming to you not live from Long Island City, New York. I've been to this hotel many times. I've done shows from this hotel. I stay here because it's affordable as far as New York area hotels goes, and I'm on a budget as I travel for my job. And I got upgraded to a suite. It happens, 1 out of every 15 hotel stays, I get upgraded to a suite. And this is just a Fairfield Inn. It's not that fancy. But this suite has a large jacuzzi bathtub in it. And it's glorious. That's all I'll say about that. It's fantastic. Which is a nice thing to end a long day of selling and slinging guitars all over the New York metro area. How are you all doing? Welcome. Thanks for listening. I missed you guys. I get emails a lot of times when a few days or maybe a week goes by without an episode, and the emails are like, hey man, everything okay? And I've referenced this before on the show, I know, but we have new listeners who didn't go back like a crazy person and listen to all 159 episodes, so I'm going to repeat myself sometimes. But people say, where you been? Are you okay? And like tonight there was a post on Pinside, actually, because I was checking out some Pinside. I was going to find it real quick and read it. Somebody was nice enough to say something to the gist of his post was, I know we had 6 episodes in 16 days, and I was shocked. I was like, whoa, I did 6 episodes in 16 days? And I'll just take him at his word. I guess I did. But I'm jonesing for another episode, which made me smile. Because I was jonesing for another episode as it was. I was missing you. But, I got my new Metallica game, which has been keeping my pinball hours sort of occupied with playing. It's busy for work right now. I'm here doing a big guitar expo thing this weekend, and then next week I'm crossing the state of New York, doing a bunch of events for Taylor Guitars, which is what I do. But I've had some things on my mind, and I think episode 160 will be good. We're going to talk about pinball, as we tend to do, and let's kick this thing off with some fast thoughts.
5 fast thoughts.
All right, fast thought number 1. Metallica is such a bright game. Like, the Metallica Pro LED is just blisteringly bright. It lights up the entire room and hallway in my condo. It's amazing. I swapped out the lights that are along the backboard of the playfield that are bright white lights. I put blue lights in those to tone it down just a little bit, which I really like. It actually brings out the blue of the plastics and the blue of the artwork on the back of the playfield a lot. So blue, folks, ladies and gentlemen, try blue. It looks really good. There's spotlights on the game, which I've seen people remove. It's just really, really bright. And I was the one defending America's Most Haunted, saying it's not a dim game, but I got to tell you, when it's next to Metallica LED, America's Most Haunted does look sort of dim, so I might just move the spotlights over. Fast thought number 2. Somebody posted on Pinside, this is a tiny little bit of forum static, something to the effect of, please, I'm desperate, give me some sort of update. It was in the Dutch Pinball subforum. It was plea for an update, anything really. And about 5 posts in, I believe, Burning Man, who is part of the Dutch Pinball USA team, posted a photo that Barry from Dutch Pinball sent him, and it is a beautiful full playfield shot of the Big Lebowski playfield all lit up with what I believe, I believe, and Barry can text me and verify this, is the final approved art for the playfield. I see no handgun, I see no pot leaf. That looks like the final playfield, and it looks beautiful. It looks really nice. It actually, it makes my wallet hurt, is what that does. All right, fast thought number 3. Really bummed I can't go to the Northwest show this year. I had a fun time at that show last year. I wasn't really in tournament mode. I think I was sick. I feel like I was sick at like a bunch of shows last year. All these grimy pinball machines get you sick. I wasn't feeling well at that show, and maybe just lack of sleep. And I didn't really partake in the tournament all that much. And I was just reading like a little rundown of the tournament that they run up there and how cool it is. So we'll get in depth on that one more. But I'm just kind of bummed I can't go to that show. It just doesn't work in my schedule this year. Fast thought number 4. You friendly listeners like Mr. Bowen Cairns. Bowen's episode was very well downloaded, the interviews we did with him, and then the amount of email and Facebook messages and little just notes to me about how much you're enjoying hearing Bowen talk pinball is overwhelming. I was shocked that it just kept coming in and still is coming in. So thank you for the feedback. I like that. I may have taken that for granted because I've watched so many of Bowen's Papa tutorial videos, which can be found through the papa.org website. To me, it's like second nature. Oh, I need to know about a game. Hopefully Bowen's done a tutorial, and you go watch Bowen talk about it. And he has a certain way of doing it that I think translated really well into the show. So we'll have more of Bowen's cheat sheet tonight on episode 160. So thank you. I'm glad that's going over well, and awesome that Bowen did that for us. And number 5, another guest of the show, Josh Sharp. Josh Sharp is making his next appearance like really easy for us. There was some sort of fear that, maybe we'll only do like 15-minute segments. We won't have a lot to talk about. But with the changes to the Whopper system with Whopper 5.1 that I think were announced just like days after his last episode here on Coast to Coast Pinball, there's been a lot of talk, a lot of conversations, arguments, and questions arising and answers being hammered out on Whopper changes as far as world pinball player rankings, which, by the way, I jumped way up in the rankings. I don't know did we talk about it on the show? I think we did. Anyway, I'm under 2,000 last time I checked, which go me. Go this guy. So there's 5 fast thoughts for episode 160.
Forum static.
All right, so forum static. I have actually been trying to get this into a show for weeks and weeks, but I had interview shows, we had Texas Pinball Festival, we had Midwest Gaming Classic. Things just kept popping up, and I just couldn't really address it. Somebody actually even asked me at the Texas Pinball Festival, why aren't you talking about color DMD versus smart DMD? And I had been wanting to, and I'd been following a few different threads that were sort of going in depth on color DMD progress, and then this new, smart DMD, which has been available for a while, but then specifically the new, the PMD, Mike from Florida. I think a lot of you listeners probably know who Mike is. Mike was working on sort of a whole package to package the smart DMD system with all the stuff you would need to put that into your game. So it was really weird because in this thread on Pinside, and if you'd like to follow along on this thread, I will give you the name of the thread, which I try to have handy before I start these things, but let me just find it for you, which I apparently can't. Smart. Boo on your host, Nate Shivers. But this thread was started by... I am so mad at this right now. I can't find it. All right, here we go. This thread was started by Pinsider Arik. I think we all know who Arik is. I can't say his name right now, apparently. But Arik, he is often one of the heaviest posters on Pinside at any given time. I guess they don't do the little rankings anymore of who posts the most, but he contributes a lot. He's actually joined the Highway Pinball team as a art advisor on Aliens, which is very cool. And he had started a thread that was, the intent of this thread was to compare the color DMD AC/DC, which was out, to the new product, which is being released by Mike and PMD. It was not just Smart DMD, which is just can be like, generic Smart DMD. It was his package system that he was putting together with the coloring that he did. So let's talk Color DMD first. Color DMD has been around about 5 years, based in Southern California. It's a plug-and-play system. It's $400. For $400, you can buy a system and put into your game that has colorized artwork, the dots, all the dots, the scoring, everything that you see on the DMD display will be put. I still can't find this thread, by the way. I'm still searching as I'm talking. I found it. Okay, it's called Color DMD versus PMD Smart DMD comparison. So Color DMD, I would say, probably one of the most highly thought of mods in the pinball world. Right up there with like shaker motors and like LEDs. I think a Color DMD is something that as soon as you see one in person, you're blown away. It's taking this single color screen that's super lo-fi and turning it into something that's many, many steps past its original output and intent. By changing out and putting in an LCD screen, doing full color to the dots, and then there's options for different output formats. So that company has been around, been doing a great job. They've been releasing titles at a pace for a while, and they've got a lot of titles out, lots, and working on more. There's some great talks with Randy from Color DMD, from Expo and Texas Pinball Festival that are out there. So if you want to really know a lot of the in-depth guts of the company and how they got to where they are, go check it out. I love them. I think they're awesome. They look fantastic. It's a lot of work, and this is not like a full-time job, but it's like one of the higher-end mods for your pinball machine. So it's expensive. It's $400, and that's always been the one kind of drawback is like, oh my gosh, it's $400. I can buy... I think there's EM games I can go buy for $400. But if you're spending $5,000 to $8,000 on a game, I think it's a completely justified upgrade. It gets a little tricky when you're buying a $1,700, $1,800, $1,900 Judge Dredd and then spending $400 on it. But if it's your favorite game, I get it. So, Smart DMD. Smart DMD is basically a product that you would have to then pair with the pinball browser, and you could color your own dots. And I am not going to get down the technical side of all this. I encourage you to go research and do it yourself, because I don't want to misspeak on the details of how it's all done. But I'm just telling you the nuts and bolts of it. Smart DMD is going to be for someone who wants to do it themselves. It's a DIY solution to coloring a DMD. And you can literally go in and I believe this is only for the SAM system Stern games at this point. And if I'm wrong on that, I apologize. But you can go in and color it themselves. And so this ruffled some feathers at some point, and I don't know all the behind the scenes of it, but there sort of became a little bit of a us versus them thing happening out there in the ether and on Pinside specifically, and in this thread you see it happen, where we had people defending Color DMD as clearly the better solution, and then we had people saying, no, Smart DMD is better because you can do anything you want. So we had all the makings for this like kind of competitive landscape of these two competing products. It had clear differences that I think I could probably, if I had to like take these up in debate team, I could probably argue for either one, despite what I may feel is the one I would choose for myself in my situation. But I could probably put together a pretty nice argument for either kit once Mike's PMD system was sort of put together. So I had been watching this thread, and Mike was chiming in. I think Randy had come in, and we were seeing comparisons of how ACDC looked on Color DMD versus how ACD looked on the PMD Smart DMD. And basically PMD is a package with the Smart DMD put together, and then they were going to sell you, at one point, the ROM, the upgraded information for any said game. Later on, the games that were being completed by a few people were then said to be going to be given away for free. So the cost difference was about $100, $299 versus $399 for color DMD. So Smart DMD, the PMD kit was going to come in at $299. You could actually buy the Smart DMD for even less, but you'd have to source all the parts, the brackets. There's a lot more to it. And like I was trying to say, it was shaping up to be this sort of, I don't know, product. I don't want to use the war as way too overstated, but it was setting out to be competition in our friendly little hobby here. And it was getting heated, and definitely there were some emotions going on. And we'll get into why that is here in a second. But before it ever really got there, it sounds like the rug has sort of been pulled out, and Mike from this project, Mike from Florida, has said, nope, I don't have time to do this. I've got other things going on. My job is taking up too much time. I will not be, selling these $299 kits, and the work I did will still be out there for free, and you can work on them, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it sounds like we're not going to have that big competing platform as far as $299 versus $399. There's still absolutely the option to go buy a Smart DMD, and with the pinball browser, color your own dots. That's still there. I'm not saying that went away, but this sort of, put together, retail kit idea seems to be off the table now, which was interesting because a lot of stuff was thrown around and said, and then it seemed to all just quickly hit a wall. The basic breakdown when you looked at the two products, and I still think this is valuable on some level, was one of the central arguments on which one was, quote, better. Okay, so first of all, Color DMD is going to be the choice for people who don't want to plug into a computer and do anything. And that's me. I don't want to program my own dots. It's tedious, it's time consuming, it's something I have no interest in doing. So a guy like me is going to buy a Color DMD, or he's not because it's $400. One of those two things. So Smart DMD was very much for the guys who are buying P-Rocks and, writing their own rules, who are into the pinball browser and redoing, songs and tinkering with things in their games. There was absolutely that segment of this hobby very alive and well. I mean, we're seeing these games come to expos. There's Goonies Pinball and Spinal Tap Pinball and Buffy the Vampire Slayer Pinball. So there's all these things. So there's absolutely a market for that. But I think for the mass appeal, for the operators, for the guys who are just trying to spruce up their games at home and don't really get into the programming side of things and working on the artistic side, Color DMD was probably the choice, as it was truly the plug and play closed source system. You buy it, you get it, you can actually use the display in any game that they have a ROM for. You just have to get the new memory stick, I believe, and put it in to update it. So it can be swapped out. So if I bought one for an AC/DC, but then now that Metallica is coming out, I could move it over to Metallica if I wanted, just by getting the USB files. So, which is cool. But as far as going in and redoing anything or recoloring or anything like that, can't do it. Color DMD is closed source, and that is what it is. It's plug and play. The amount of colors became a big point of argument. A lot of people were saying to start out that Color DMD is working with 193 colors versus the Smart DMD platform, which was only 16 colors. And this is where you start getting really, really technical, because when I say that, I think most of you who don't know a lot about this are going to go, oh, well, game over. I'm buying Color DMD because it has 193 colors. Well, the way you get there is you have 16 base colors, which each have 12 shadings. And let's do some math on Coast2Coast Pinball. 16 times 12 is 192, but then you can also use black, so that's 193. So the argument then was, well, it's really only 16 colors with 12 shadings, which I myself find that kind of a silly argument, because if I have red and then I make it light red, that's like pink, so that's a new color in my book. So to me, more colors. And I think you saw that when you looked at some of the comparisons of some scenes on AC/DC where you saw shading occurring on most of the large animations had shading, which made a difference, where a lot of the Smart DMD animations, while looked very, very good, I thought, were more flat looking. They didn't have the shading edge work on a lot of the colors. So From the Smart DMD side, though, they said that it was 16 on any given screen in that group of palettes. Like, you have a palette of colors for that screen, but on the next screen you could use a different palette. And I think at one point Mike, who did the animation work for AC/DC, said he had over 30 palettes working for AC/DC. So you could get different colors throughout the game than just the 16, but on any one screen, I believe it was 16. I think that I had that clear. So that was one of the big kind of, argumentative things. At a point, they were going to sell all of the ROMs for the PMD programs, and they were going to be, I believe, somewhere between $25 and $50 maybe. So that would actually take a $300 product, and if you bought it plug and play with AC/DC, it would have been $350. And there's this pretty amazing thing that happens, like middle of this thread, where Mike comes in and goes, "Hey, you know what? I've been reading this thread and I really appreciate it, and it's made me realize I was taking for granted why I'm into pinball. And pinball it's fun, it's a hobby, and I'm going to give away my files." Which was sort of a left turn. It was like, okay, well now it's not $350, it's actually $300. So for $300, you could have a colored AC/DC. And I think there are people who saw this as like, well, hey, if these guys are going to make all these colored games and it's only $300, that's a viable option. It's a plug and play $300 color DMD alternative. And then it didn't come out, and there was some time going on, and then we had later, like I said, Mike kind of coming out and saying, I'm not going to keep selling this as a big product. Although he's very adamant about the fact that with a Smart DMD, any game under the systems that it can work on can be colored. So you're not tied into what the company might do for you. Like, whereas Color DMD, if you buy Color DMD, they have to color it for you. Or you can use white, which some people have used on Twilight Zone, which I've seen with pretty nice effect there, because there is no Color DMD files for Twilight Zone yet. But Smart DMD, you could literally, on the games that it supported, color all of them yourself. However, I think that's a stretch for most people. I'm not going to spend 10, 20, 50, 100, 200 hours coloring a game myself if I know for another $100 or another whatever it ends up being, depending on how you buy the Smart DMD, somebody's taken great care and worked on a color DMD. I guess maybe part of me, like, I like competition, so I think competition's good. I'm all for the free market, and competition is awesome. But there's a problem here when we start talking about competition in the colorizing of DMDs for pinball machines. So here's one of my problems. What Color DMD has done over the last 5 years is pretty impressive to me. It's a lot of work. They've had to navigate how they did this to be legal, because you get into intellectual property issues, and we know that's been a hot button subject in pinball lately. And they've found a way. The way they do it keeps them clear of any problems legally. Just an incredible amount of time and effort put into this. And we saw the first few kind of trickle out, and then Randy had his reveal a little over a year ago, where he said he was actually going to be starting to hire people to do the coloring. And so if you're hearing my show and you're thinking, I'd love to do something like that, get in touch with Color DMD. They will pay you. I don't know how much they'll pay you, but they will pay you to work on colorizing future titles. So I sort of just have a level of respect for the company, just for the amount of work, the amount of effort. And it's not just that. He's traveled around the country. He spent a lot of his own money just to go and do it for the love of it. Because I can tell you, here on episode 160, it's hard to make money. Very hard to make money. In fact, I don't know how to make money myself in my situation on a side pinball project. Now, I think Color DMD's made money, because they've sold a lot of these things, because it's a great product. But I don't think Randy and the company is getting rich off of Color DMD. In fact, I can guarantee they're not. So part of me just wants to support them because of what they've done and who they are, and that's my personal bias. Not to say I would turn my nose up at another product that came out, but it needs a cleaner launch. It needs to just kind of be there for me. And I'm personally not interested in coloring my own game. So that to me was sort of where I was falling in the thing. The other problem with this, and now while we talk about this little section, know that you can apply this to some other parts of pinball. Let's talk about the pie that is pinball, right? We're not selling 70, 80, 90,000 pinball machines a year, okay? We're selling what? All told, worldwide, are we selling 7,500 games a year? 8,000, 9,000 games a year? I'll text Gary Stern here in a little bit and ask him. I won't do that, but I think it'd be funny. See what he says. Let's say let's be super generous. We're selling 10,000 pinball machines a year. How many are we shipping? No, I'm just kidding. We're selling 10,000 pinball machines a year. So how many did we sell the last 15 years? I mean, you start doing the math on that. How many are still there? You look at how many games are out there. What's the market for something like a color DMD, right? Okay, so there's just some games that aren't there anymore. There's some games that are broken, dead, and gone. We talk about this all the time with just trying to buy machines that, there's, 15,000 Twilight Zones out there. Well, no, there's not. There's some percentage of those games are gone. So to try and build a business based on, colorizing the DMDs, which some people just are never going to like because they like the way dots look and they feel that dots are the way the machine was built and that's the way it should be. B, some people are never going to spend the sort of money on something that affects gameplay zero. It doesn't affect the gameplay. This is purely just adding to the aesthetics and the overall experience of the game. But as far as, ball on playfield, DMD doesn't matter. So you have this finite customer base, period. And it's not like that's, when you talk about launching a product or business, like, well, who are our customers? Well, Color DMD knows exactly who their customers are. It's very limited. It's very small. And I think you saw some of this kind of maybe come to light as the, quote, competition heated up a little bit of like, Randy said it in public, we don't even know how much longer we can do this. We're doing this right now, but we may reach maximum capacity where we've sold all these that we're going to sell, and thanks, see you later. Now there's still lots of room for growth as there's many more games to be colorized, and they've just started really with the Stern titles, very recently. But at the end of the day, this is a very small little pie. So when you do start cutting that pie like into pieces where other companies want a chunk of that action, it gets tough. And you could start sacrificing, competition usually breeds a better product, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case in pinball when you have people making little to no money seeing their pie get cut up. Are they going to want to keep doing it? I don't know. That's what I worry about. So I guess it's a tricky thing, and it's happened, I think, in LEDs a little bit. We've seen the LED companies pop up, and some have faded out a little bit and have not been as active. That's definitely a real thing, because now games are shipping with LEDs. When I bought, let's pick a game. When I bought, I don't know, when I bought my Tales from the Crypt, I also bought 120 LEDs to throw in it, something like that, some number up there. When I bought Metallica Pro, I didn't have to buy any LEDs. In fact, I didn't buy any LEDs. I had some left over from other projects, and I put the 5 or 6 in the back box, and maybe a few GI color swaps that I swapped white out for a color. Probably put 10, 12 LEDs in my Metallica game. So that market could shrink. It's interesting. It's just, and really all I'm saying is that, we're never going to get to a point where there's like 6 companies doing a color DMD. There's just simply not enough business there. I think we all sort of wonder, and I certainly know I've heard some of the smaller company pinball makers wonder this out loud. How many pinball machines can the market take? That's been a big question, is what is the most amount of pinball machines we can make? And I gotta tell you, you see swings in sales of certain games and certain things happen And I can feel it happening just based on people posting on the internet, mailing me, talking to a couple distributors, that, when Stern puts a game out that's not real popular, there's surges in other things. You start seeing, certain 90s Williams games trade a lot at a lot higher value. That's real and happening. Stern puts out a couple games in a row that weren't like mega hits, and it opens the door for Spooky Pinball to show up at Texas with a game to sell that's complete and different and cool, and sell all of them, basically all they have left. So these doors can open and close. Now, when Stern puts out AC/DC and Metallica in the same 12, 14 months, whatever that was, it becomes more difficult, because now you have the biggest company hitting the biggest home run, and you start seeing, game prices drop for some of those A-list titles, because people are trying to move those to buy these new, brand new unboxed games. Some of those limited edition games are very expensive. You see Medieval Madness remade, and it sucks millions of dollars out of the pinball world. So it's not this giant, ever-expanding customer base you're dealing with. It's sort of a finite amount of people who are going to spend money to buy anything pinball-related. There's a finite amount of people who are going to download this show. It's more than I ever thought, and I'm over my, 6 months of, oh my gosh, I can't believe how many people are listening to this crazy little show I do. And now I'm when I see a 10% uptick, I'm blown away now. I thought I was sort of there. And then Roger Sharp comes on, and I'm 10% higher than any other show in one night. And I'm like, okay, well, there's more people. You're just finding more people. I start bringing high-level tournament players onto the show, and the numbers go up. And you know what? The numbers stayed up every show since. It's pretty interesting. So I'll top out here, and maybe we're topped out. Maybe this is it. Maybe the pinnacle was 159, and it's all downhill from here. If it's all downhill from here, let's go really fast downhill and crash hard at the end. But what I'm trying to say is, pinball is still this kind of, thing that we're all a part of. And there's not 6 degrees of separation to me and anybody else in pinball. It's like 2 degrees at the most. So when you see companies popping up, when you see builders popping up, how much room is there right now? How much room will there be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years? Stern's moving to a big new factory because I think they're betting on a bigger pie. It'd be hard for them to get much more of the pie, but they're betting on a bigger pie. Total left turn tangent. I made some notes earlier. I was thinking about all this in my head, and I was thinking about how the swings in pinball machine sales can go. And I would argue with you, okay, because I'm looking at the last 3 in a row, the last 3 games in a row from Stern, I think have been kind of okay. They haven't had a home run since Metallica. Can we all agree on that? Friendly listeners, I'm looking out the window at all of you. We can all agree that Metallica was the last home run. I think it started, I think Tron was a home run. Spider-Man before it, probably. But I think we weren't ready yet as a hobby. We just weren't quite there. But Tron was really a home run. AC/DC, absolute home run. Metallica, a home run. It cannot go unmentioned that this, and if you haven't noticed it, please go look in the Metallica owners thread right now. There's a huge, re-interest in Metallica right now. New in-box Metallica games all over the place. I'm getting emails like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you got one, I'm getting one. It has nothing to do with me getting one. I'm saying that people are relating to me getting one. It's big right now, really big. Because, well, A, it's tax time, people getting money, which helps guitars too, trust me. But because, if you look at the last 3 games from Stern, and I'm holding my notebook up as I pace around this hotel room like a crazy person, just FYI. You look at Mustang. Okay, Mustang was a swing and a miss on theme. It was a brutally fast, tough game that I think people who only played it on location a time or two probably were a little scared of. And now, it's actually turning out to be a really good tournament game. I think to a lot of people, I hear that a lot. A lot of people say, oh, it's a great tournament game. And to those that have stuck with it and followed the code, they like it. It's okay. It's all right. The Walking Dead. Huge home run theme, right? We all said The Walking Dead, that's a home run theme. You know what? I think a lot of people were disappointed with that game from a playfield and layout and shots making direction. And not just the casual home buyer. Gary Stern with his, we have operators, we have collectors, and we have enthusiasts. What is it? Two of them are always like really the same thing to me. Casual game room guys. Game room guys, collectors, and operators. The operators are I think probably the ones most happy with The Walking Dead, because from what I've heard, it earns fairly well. Earns really well from what a few people told me. So that's cool. That's fine. But like Gary Stern told me in person, 70% of the games in the United States are being sold for the home right now. And the casual player, I think that game's incredibly frustrating with a few of the layout things that we've discussed to death on this show. The feed out of the pop bumpers, the amount of time the ball is in the pop bumpers, how risky the shots are in that game. The problems they've had with detecting the shots in the zombie face in the prison. There's just some things about that game that are just really frustrating to a casual player. I think that's been echoed by some of the higher level players too. So The Walking Dead to me was like a home run on the theme, and then like a kind of like a single, like they hit like a little single to short left field. On the gameplay, not that great. And then we have to say it, right? The code's just not there. It got better at one point, but it's not there yet. It's certainly not there. And the code could help that game, because part of this resurgence in Metallica, let me jump back to Metallica for just a second. Part of this re-interest in Metallica, part of it is that the word got out how awesome the code is on that game. Everybody started talking about hey, have you seen this thing they added? This Crank It Up. It's like amazing, and check out Seek and Destroy and End of the Line, and it's blackened. I mean, there's all these things in that game, and they've tweaked it. And the Lyman Sheets thing, and he's like the god of code, and we love Lyman. Yes, in Lyman we trust. And I should put that on a T-shirt. Note to self. But the code on that game, just like the code on AC/DC, I think propelled those last, it's not the first, 2,000 games. It's those last 500 games. And I don't know how many of these they've sold. I'm totally making numbers up. But it's these last few hundred games that went out the door because, hey, this game has awesome code. It's mostly done, and it's better than the last couple games they put out. And they're still making it. So you can't help but wonder, could they have sold twice as many AC/DC or Metallica had this code been done when they shipped the game? And is that going to at some point dawn on the company if it hasn't already? Is the company going to go, wait a minute, hold on. We're still selling 300 Metallicas in the last 60 days, and we're not selling 300 WrestleManias in the last 60 days? I mean, is something like that going to happen? Because it could. So the code on The Walking Dead, I think, hurts it. Because it's simply not that compelling right now for a home environment. And then WWE WrestleMania. That's a tough one, because I support that theme. However, I don't think they hit it out of the park with that one either, because I don't think the current modern wrestling characters, figures, people, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, these guys, I don't think those people connected with the folks that had $5,000 to $8,000 in their wallet. That's the problem. I think those characters are probably, I think WrestleMania and WWE are very popular right now, but I think they're popular with a younger demographic, or a demographic not into pinball for whatever reason. I think you saw this with a lot of the outcry of how cool the LE was with Hulk Hogan and The Rock and sort of this older cast of characters. Maybe it should have been WrestleMania's 30-year history as the game with all the old guys. I don't know, So the theme was tough. I think that game misses a little bit on layout too. I think the ring's a problem. Everybody I talk to at all these shows, they go, yeah, I played it, and they either say one of two things. They either say, it's a lot better than I thought it would be, or they say, I don't really connect with the flow and the shots. And then the next thing I ask, both camps, the people who say, oh, it's better than I thought it would be, and I don't really care for it, I say, so do you think the ball spends too much time in the ring? And everyone's like, oh, yeah, wait, they got to fix that with code. So you've got this game that just doesn't play that good right now. It's not that fun. It's just not that. It's okay. I like it okay. I'm not buying that game right now. No way. So that's 3 in a row. That's a year's plus worth of games coming out of Stern. Of course Metallica is going to be looked at. Oh, you're still building that game that everyone loves and says is like a code genius game that they're playing in tournaments and people are developing these strategies for and everyone says is a modern classic? Of course. And the problem right now is Stern's only building 3 games a year. Because back in the day, and here's where this all stemmed from. This whole rant I'm on stemmed from me and these little notes I made. Back in the day, you could release a game like, I don't know, Junkyard, right? Junkyard at Williams. That game was not a hit, but it didn't need to be. It was just a game you got out, you put out on route, you sold a bunch, kept building something in your factory, because pinball companies are manufacturing companies. Remember that. So, Junkyard. We'll call Junkyard WrestleMania. WrestleMania. Junkyard is WrestleMania. WrestleMania is Junkyard. Back in the 90s, not that big of a deal. Now, granted, I know pinball was dying, but stick with me here. We're talking about themes and playability and likability. It's all relative. You could have a game like Champion Pub. Kind of a, oddly specific game with sort of an interesting rule set. Wasn't going to be a classic, wasn't going to be an Addams Family. So to me, Champion Pub, that's The Walking Dead. That's The Walking Dead. And it's okay. You got some weird things going on. It's interesting. And WWE, that's NBA Fast Break. Or No Good Gophers, or something like that. It's just not one of the massive hits from that era. It's a game, okay, yeah, it's all right, and it can be. But the problem is that's the entire year's worth of games, and that's all they're going to be building here soon, until the next game goes on. Those are the games that Stern's going to be building. I screwed up somewhere, because, did I say Mustang? I said Mustang, I don't know. Walking Dead, WWE, and Mustang are Champion Pub, Junkyard, and No Good Gophers. All fine games. They're all good. They're pinball. We love pinball. But it's kind of that. Whereas Tron, AC/DC, Metallica, well, that's Tales of the Arabian Nights, that's Monster Bash, and that's Medieval Madness. That's what you have there. So if you're Stern, you really have to try and build more Medieval Madnesses and design and promote more Medieval Madnesses and build fewer and less Junkyards. More Medieval Madness, less Junkyard. And that's hard to do. I get it, that's hard to do. Got to be careful. I think on last episode I talked about Kiss probably being the next game, and I think I attributed it to probably being built by John Borg. It's funny because I got one email, like literally when I woke up, that said, "No, dude, it's not John Borg, it's Steve Ritchie." And then the next email I got, "Yeah, it's John Borg, it's going to be awesome." So I have no idea. I don't know. I think we all know Kiss is coming. I don't even know if Kiss is next. I also had an email that said, "Dude, Kiss is not next. You've been fooled." So I don't know. But there's my rant on stuff and things and business, and the moon's still out, New York still looks beautiful. Let's take a break. Bowen, the game we're going to talk about on this episode is a game that's often referred to as a player's game, I guess because it's hard and it beats people up, and I know it has lots of strategies to score on. We're going to talk about The Shadow. What would be some good tips you would give me if I'm not real familiar with The Shadow and I need to get up and I have to play it and I got to get some points up?
I love The Shadow. If The Shadow is in Papa Finals, I win. If The Shadow is not in Papa Finals, I don't win. That is a consistent thing that's happened every year since The Shadow was produced. Anyway, that was a terrible start.
No, it's a great start. I was actually just trying to fact check you, actually. I take your word for it.
There might be some other year where The Shadow was in finals where I wasn't in it, but when Shadow is in finals, I kick its ass.
So what do you like about it? What's your strategy on it when you step up?
So the first thing to know about The Shadow is it's one of the fastest pinball machines of all time. You have to be on your game, and you have to be ready for very, very quick reactions. That means that if you've got a soda, if you've got fast music, if you've got something to just amp you up, get it and use it before playing The Shadow, because you need to be on your game immediately after getting on the machine. To succeed at Shadow, my personal strategy is to use the two-way combo. What you do is shoot the left loop around the back of the game and then use the top flipper to shoot the loop around as many times as you can. Every time you do that for a two-way combo, it'll add 3 million to the value of the combo starting from 10. So like 10, 13, 16, 19, 22, and there's no limit to that. So if you can boost that up to around 30 or 40 million per combo, all of a sudden you're getting the same amount of points that someone else is getting for their jackpots and double jackpots. You're able to just roll that machine into a huge score by consistently doing the same process. The trouble with that strategy is that the loop shot from the upper flipper is very early. It's so fast. And you'll effectively want to flip as soon as you can see the ball up in that upper right. You can get the timing down, and it works. And if you can get that to work, you can make several loops in a row. I remember one tournament final where I made a 7-loop combo in one go on ball 1 of the Papa Finals.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, nothing else really happened on that ball, and I walked off with 400 million.
Wow. What do you do on the skill shot on that game? Because I get sort of tantalized. It was in the C Division Bank this year, and it was a game that I had watched your tutorial. I knew the rules, and I thought I could do it. And I found myself losing balls just because I was chasing that darn skill shot on that short left ramp.
You're absolutely right. The skill shot on Shadow does not exist. The only way that it should exist for you is if your two-way combo is not working at all. So staying concentrated on two-way combos is where it's at for a score. But if you're unsuccessful with two-way combos, you don't feel comfortable with that upper flipper, and I've been there on certain Shadows, then the strategy changes to ramps and vengeance. And you're operating those extra buttons to move the ramps left and right, and you're trying to get all 4 ramps. So it's left ramp twice, right ramp twice. And if you can get into a groove on left ramps and right ramps, you can potentially score very high by getting a vengeance or getting a super vengeance for 50 or 100 million, and combo points and multipliers. And it rolls pretty well, but doesn't roll as quickly as two-way combos rolls. So vengeance is not safe at all. It's really dangerous to do that. But it's the second layer of strategy that I would use. Is
the Sanctum multi-ball just too dangerous for you?
No, actually, what I use the Sanctum multi-ball for is a bailout. It's such a wide shot that if my ball is out of control, I'm going to just try to flail it up the middle of the game and hope that the lock catches it.
Yeah.
So what I like to do is I like to light the lock, and then I don't bother collecting the lock. I just flail a ball up there when there's trouble and let the lock take care of me.
What about the battlefield strategy that I see some people try and implement?
The people who are using the battlefield strategy are people who are used to playing pinball on location, and the battlefield gives them extra balls. But that is not going to help them at all in tournament playing. It doesn't even light an extra ball. It just gives you nothing. There's a small value of points to get up there, and you're doing dangerous things trying to get the ball through the battlefield, hitting the target, getting it back. It seemed like it was a very popular strategy among European players for a while, but it's kind of fallen out of favor, and rightfully so. It's just not worth any points. The Papa tutorial video has us play the game 3 different times, one for Battlefield, one for Vengeance, and one for two-way combos, to draw a comparison between these 3 strategies and how well they score. And the Battlefield just fails miserably. It's just not a good way to play the game.
Good stuff. Thanks, man. All right, I am just going to go backwards in order. All right, Shane, friend of the show. Shane from Australia. Your shirts should be there any day, Shane. Let's see. Okay, so actually I got to back up a little bit because he sent me 3 separate emails. Hey, man, was just thinking about this while posting in the pinball section of Reddit. Would love to know your thoughts. On air or otherwise. Well, we're sort of not live on air. Dennis Nordman mentioned on C2C a few episodes ago that pinball machines were getting far too complicated and deep, and was hoping Woe Nelly would bring people back to a time when they could understand a pinball machine very quickly without getting sensory overload. I had a thought about this. I remember enjoying the earlier code for Metallica much more than after its first big update, just because it was simple enough to understand, yet still a lot of fun. What if manufacturers programmed 2 or multiple layers of code in the machine? Okay, I see where you're going with this. I'm going to stop reading. So I don't think that's a bad idea, having a second game within a game, possibly, like sort of, if you will, bumpers on a bowling alley. You're still bowling, but we're going to put some, bumpers in the lane so that you can't gutter ball all the time. I could see that. But Shane, you're better than that, man. You can do it. I have faith in you. The problem with... Okay, so I don't agree with Dennis. The games are too complicated. I just don't. I do agree with lack of rules for the game being easy and quick to grasp, however. And I know that sounds like a contradiction, but it's not. Here, I'll explain. And we were just talking about this. When you're writing the rules and the code after the game's been released, sometimes you don't get the opportunity, whether it's on a card on the game or in the playfield or just a natural feel, because I think sometimes coding guys are just like assuming that we're all in their heads while they're doing this. I think sometimes it's like, well, how would I know how to get to crank it up mode? Like, okay, it sort of shows me on the DMD, but if I just stepped up to Metallica on location, yeah, how would I know how to get there? Totally get there. Totally got what you're saying. It was coded later. The badges on Star Trek, how would I know how to do that? So I get what you're saying, but like I said, 70% of the games being sold in the United States are going to the home market. They need to be deep. They need to be fleshed out. They need to give players multiple avenues and multiple approaches to the game, I think, to get your money's worth. I really believe that. Now, the idea of having something very basic and simple is a good thing. And I think Metallica's good at that. Bash Sparky. Hit Sparky a bunch of times, and you're going to get multi-ball, and he's going to shake, and the light show's going to go off. It's going to be awesome. Star Trek. Hit the ship a bunch. We're going to fight the ship. You'll get there eventually. Maybe AC/DC isn't quite as clear. I remember, and I think I know a little bit about pinball. I remember not really understanding how on earth to get the multi-ball for a good 6 months of playing AC/DC until somebody who goes, well, dude, just like, hit a bunch of ramps or hit all the drop targets down a bunch of times. And I'm like, oh, well, that's easy enough. And maybe that's just me being dumb. But, so, I do kind of understand what you're saying. And I kind of like the idea of maybe a quote, I don't want to use children's mode, but like a simple mode, like a simple rules mode where it's just, hit every shot once and it lights it up, and then hit this shot and you win, jackpot, or something like that. I could see that. I'm into that. But no, I actually want deep, complicated games that still have things like Sparky so that Teresa can, electrocute the poor lad. Shane's next email was commenting on the it's actually a link to Reddit discussing something that happened on Facebook that I read all about on Pinside. So this was spreading multiple prongs of internet webdom, and that was the post that Lyman Sheets made on Facebook in response to Steve Bowden saying he hasn't really found himself getting into The Walking Dead. And Lyman, to I think a lot of people's surprise, and I'm looking for this as we're typing here, I'm typing looking for this while we're talking. Lyman popped up kind of out of nowhere with some very, very candid remarks to Steve on Facebook on a public forum. And Lyman said, and I quote, "Hey Steve, I'm sorry you don't like the game. Most of it has to do with a botched license, coupled with me being taken off the project in late November to help out with the spike system equals stagnant code. It's hard to say if you will ever like it, but it would be great if my employer would give me a chance to make the game at least halfway decent. then you might have a chance. It earns pretty well despite the hardcore pinheads, like yourself, not liking it for lots of reasons. I'm not mad that you don't like it. I appreciate your honest opinion. To put it into perspective, Star Trek was given 3+ man-years for code, and Walking Dead was abandoned in less than a year. Okay, so this sort of blew up when people saw that, because people were like, oh my gosh, Walking Dead is abandoned, Lyman said so, and people were shocked and saying, that can't be Lyman Sheets. Yeah, that's Lyman Sheets, folks. That's him. However, I think what some people missed in that post was he was taken off the project in November. He was not taken off the project forever, but in November, he was pulled off the project to work on the Spike system. That is not saying he could not go back and work on it more. All right? I know we're getting into like 2 levels here. Taken off, but maybe went back. Okay? There are also other programmers at Stern. Other very good programmers at Stern, I think we're starting to see. He's saying 3+ man-years were put into Star Trek. That's saying that Star Trek had, multiple people working on that game, and he feels it totaled up like 3+ man-years. And Walking Dead was, quote, abandoned, which was the word that I think freaked a lot of people out, and I don't think is accurate. And I know that is Lyman Sheets saying that, so who am I to argue? But I can tell you for a fact, there is code being worked on for The Walking Dead. I posted this on Pinside that I know for a fact someone in the pinball community, that a lot of you folks would know the name if I said it, which I won't because I don't have permission to say it, is testing the new code. Also, back at Papa, I heard people, maybe even Lyman, my memory could be wrong, but I believe I actually heard Lyman talking about working on code for The Walking Dead. So it's not abandoned. There is more code coming, but I think the real story here, if you want to read between the lines, is Lyman's probably very aware of the where's the code movement. He's a very smart guy. I think he stays out of the fray a lot, but he's not above it completely. He's in there. He knows it. He hears it. I think Stern's obviously, they've talked about, the code is coming. They've said the code is coming. So Stern's aware of the frustration on the code happening. I think they know. And I would venture to guess there's a deeper story going on here where Lyman pulls out Star Trek as the example and then says Walking Dead was abandoned in less than a year. I would be willing to bet there's people other than Lyman at Stern probably a little frustrated on that. Just leave that hanging right there for you. So, yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Shane. Good way for me to work that into the show. And then Shane sent me one last little email, which I'm not going to comment on. All right. Shane's a smart guy. That's all I'll say there. Next email. Hi, Nate. I was listening to episode 159 and heard you mention you'll be coming to Ann Arbor, Michigan for the Pinball Showcase in May. That is true. I'm not sure if you've been to the area, but I wanted to let you know that there are a couple of places nearby that you may be interested in checking out while you're in town. Well, this is from Ryan, by the way. Ryan, I have never been to Ann Arbor. I've been to Detroit. I've seen Pearl Jam play in Detroit. I think I saw a wrestling match in Detroit long ago. I think that's the only time I've been to Michigan, in fact. So Ann Arbor will be a new experience for me. The arcade, located in Brighton, Michigan, is about 20 minutes from Ann Arbor. Did I get that right? They easily have 30+ well-maintained games. So it's called the Arcade in Brighton. Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum is located about 45 minutes from Ann Arbor. They have around 10 games that are well-maintained, as well as a lot of rare mechanical machines. Number 3, Pinball Pete's, located downtown Ann Arbor, which has around 10 or 12 games, but don't seem to be maintained quite as well as the first 2 places I mentioned. Hope this helps you make the most of your trip to Ann Arbor. Great podcast. Keep up the work. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate it. I'd actually really, out of all of that, I'd love to be able to do a trip report on the arcade. I mean, 30+ games, that's awesome. I would love to go see Marvin's Marvelous Mechanical Museum. I mean, it's sort of like famous in my head from the old Topcast spots there. Here's the problem. I think I get into Detroit at close to midnight on Thursday night before the show. Driving to Ann Arbor. And I think I'm getting to VFW Pinball. I think the EM World Championships start at like 10 a.m., so I'll be there in the morning. Going to soak in the show. Paid my money, going to be there for the day. And then I am staying in Detroit right next to the airport Friday night because I'm flying out at like 6:30 in the morning, Saturday morning. That's a really quick, tight trip. So I'm not going to get to see anything but Clay Harrell's VFW Pinball and the Pinball Showcase. But I do appreciate that, and I hope people who are in the area can use some of that information. And I would encourage you to, maybe post that for anybody getting into town early on Thursday. There is other pinball in the area if you're looking. So thank you very much, Ryan. Let's see here. This is from Chad. You were talking about how to make pinball better for TV. One thought I had was to put time limits on the game. That would force people to try and accomplish shots and objectives as quickly as possible and cut down on the grind it out with safe shots and hold 2 balls during multi-ball type play. I've played mini tournaments like this, mini tournaments like this, and found them to be much more fun. Just a thought from Chad. Thank you, Chad. I've had that thought many times. Is that maybe we do maybe you do a competition where you put everybody in brackets and everyone has 3 minutes on Tron, go. What's your score at the end of 3 minutes? I mean, there's some problems with timing games, obviously, stopping people at 3 minutes and whatnot. But whatever you can do in 3 minutes, that's it. Now, I think it inherently changes the entire nature of how you play if you're timed, which is almost a different sport. It's almost like, let me think of a really good example here. It's almost like the difference between, so ice skating, like figure skating in the Olympics. They jump and they do twirls and everything and all that stuff. And I remember my sister used to be really into watching figure skating, Olympic figure skating. Well, then there's ice dancing, right? Same skates, same ice, same silly uniforms, but they don't do the jumps. They're just like dancing on the ice. It's the same thing, but it's different completely. Does that make sense? Timed pinball would be very different. I think it'd be very cool. I think that I don't know. I would really like to see if it would be all the top players. So I propose here on Coast to Coast Pinball, with no real thought put into this, and I'll throw this out to Josh Sharp in a few weeks when he's back on the show, that at one of the major tournaments somewhere in the country in the next year, somebody does a side tournament based on timed games with a good prize pot so that the top players who are there will partake. I want to see who would win. Maybe opening rounds, you have 2 minutes on 3 different games. You have a bank of 5 games. You have 2 minutes per play. Your best 3 qualify you to the playoffs, and we're going to maximize our Whopper points by doing a best of 40. I'm just kidding. But you know what I'm saying. I like it. I like that idea because, honestly, competitive pinball as it is has to be heavily edited to make good television. That's just the realities. I have a lot more email. I'm not even close to all through it, but we're so long on the show. So, that's episode 160. T-shirts. I have mailed everybody's T-shirt but one. John, I'm sorry. Your T-shirt got set in the wrong pile and didn't go out. Teresa's going to mail it while I'm on the road. But everybody's T-shirts are on their way. We're going to Sweden. We're going to Mexico. My first shirt's ever sent to Mexico. We're going to Australia. We're going to Michigan and New Jersey and Ohio and Indiana and all sorts of T-shirts going all over the place. Thank you guys. I appreciate it. T-shirts in the United States are $16. We've got navy T-shirts. And we've got antique cherry, which is just sort of like a dirty red color. T-shirts are on the website. Check it out. Canadian prices, I think, are posted. Australian prices should be posted. If you're outside of those areas, let me know. It's usually, Europe's like $26, something like that. And I'm sorry the euro's so bad right now. I didn't do it. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you again very soon.